Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Gopi Chanavana Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Chanavana Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Rajajanarayana Yasodanandana Rajajanarayana Yamuna Girachari Yamuna Girachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Kunja Vihari Gopi Chanavana Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Ya Gopi Chanavana Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Rajajanarayana Yasodanandana Rajajanarayana Yamuna Girachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Namo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvacharya Asatara Satra His Divine Grace A. Sivakananda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shila Haridas Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Sundara Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Ki Mataram Navadam Ki Jagannath Puri Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Yamuna Maya Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Brihad Nirvanga Ki Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Bhakti Solution Ki Jai All glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru Angaraya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad study of Canto 10, chapter 44, verse 16. And before I go to the verse itself, I'm going to read something that is pleasing to the heart, instructive, and enlightening. And this from is a glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I decided I'm going to begin, whenever I give a class, begin by glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this verse is number 1, Canto 1, chapter 1, verse 3. Nikama kalpataror galitam phalam shuktamukhatam pikta dravasamyutam Vipatta Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Mohora Hora Sika Prame Bhavukaha. Translation. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the time of the day when we come together, whether we're here in the temple or online, to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam verse and commentary and explanation. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So how relishable is the Srimad Bhagavatam? And how relishable are the verses and the commentaries by Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas, and how fortunate we are that we have 35 minutes to hear from the Acharyas. I have nothing to say, but the Acharyas have plenty to say, and I would like to read what the Acharyas are saying. So in this verse, there is a very long purport. And in the purport, there is a section toward the end I'm going to read. In this shloka, it is definitely stated that spiritual rasa, which is relished even in the liberated stage, can be experienced in the literature of Srimad Bhagavatam due to its being the ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge. By submissively hearing this transcendental literature, one can attain the full pleasure of his heart's desire. By hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can attain the full pleasure of our heart's desire. But one must be very careful to hear the message from the right source. Srimad Bhagavatam is exactly received from the right source. It was brought by Narada Muni from the spiritual world and given to his disciple Sri Vyasadeva. The latter, in turn, delivered the message to his son, Srila Shukadeva Goswami, and Srila Shukadeva Goswami delivered the message to Maharaj Parikshit just 7 days before the king's death. So it's important to note this because when we are about ready to leave the body, we have no time to waste. We have to go to the essence. So now, Srila Shukadeva Goswami is delivering this message in the Bhagavatam to this person, King Parikshit, who's just about ready to leave the body. But yet, at the same time, we know that when are we leaving the body? It could be 25 years from now. It could be 5 minutes from now. We don't know. So we have to have this consciousness of the importance of fill our consciousness, our heart, with the most relishable, wonderful pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Srila Shukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from his very birth. He was liberated even in the womb of his mother, and he did not undergo any sort of spiritual training after his birth. At birth, no one is qualified, neither in the mundane nor in the spiritual sense. But Sri Shukadeva Goswami, due to his being a perfectly liberated soul, did not have to undergo an evolutionary process for spiritual realization. Yet, despite his being a completely liberated soul, situated in the transcendental position above the three material modes, he was attracted to this transcendental rasa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by liberated souls who sing Vedic hymns. Okay, I need to clarify what rasa. Rasa means to have this experience of this wonderful taste that the whole mind, intelligence, and body can experience. But actually, rasa is a transcendental experience. So sometimes we may have a glimpse of this transcendental experience when we chant the Holy Name, when we read the Bhagavatam, when we hear some classes. But this is what the goal is when we develop full love for the Supreme Lord, the Divine Kalpa, that the rasa will be there as a concomitant result. The Supreme Lord's pastimes are more attractive to liberated souls than to mundane people. So depending on our level of consciousness, we may be more and more attracted to the Supreme pastimes of the Lord as we make progress. And we can see that if we go back in our lives 10 years, 20 years, or maybe even 6 months, when we hear these pastimes, they become more relishable than some time ago. That means that the process of purification is working. He is of necessity not impersonal because it is only possible to carry on transcendental rasa with the person. And I just chanced upon this section of the purport. This is from Canto 10, chapter 7, verse 9, where a person is reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's an actual person, to be exact. It's Giriraj Swami, who is reading this verse, this part of the Bhagavatam. And he has kind of a realization when he reads a section. So he wants to share that with us. And so I'm sharing it also with those who are listening. Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 7, verse 9, part of the purport, small section. But listen to this carefully. Those who enjoy the activities of Krishna, like we may read some activities of Krishna, we may have some pleasure, we may get some enjoyment, some pleasure. Those who enjoy the activities of Krishna are also on the platform of Ananda Chimaya Ras. They are liberated from the material platform. When one develops the practice of hearing Krishna Katha, is certainly transcendental to material existence, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Sagunan Samiti Jaitan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Unless one is on the spiritual platform, one cannot enjoy the transcendental activities of Krishna. Or in other words, whoever engages in hearing the transcendental activities of Krishna is not on the material platform, but on the transcendental spiritual platform. So Sridhar Swami was reading the Bhagavatam. He was reading this section. He saw this in the purport, the section in the purport, and he felt completely enthused to delve deeply into the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have access to so many classes. We have access to so many books. We have access to the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have access to the commentaries by the disciples of Prabhupada and the commentaries of the Acharyas. And why not take advantage of this wealth that is being given to us for our purification and for our taste, for developing taste, for hearing the pastimes of the Supreme. And having said that, I just want to go ahead and get to the verse for today. And the verse for today is Canto 10, chapter 44, and verse 16. Okay, open that one, please. Pretty close. No, it's pretty close. Okay, so let me go to Radha Rajat Rajata Avishvatas Jasayam Yovi Samam Panayatosa Syanisham Yavenum Nirgamya Turnamavalapati Bhuri Punya Vashyanti Sasmitamutam Sadaya Valokam Vratar Vrajat Vrajata Avishatas Jasayam Yovi Samam Panayato Syanisham Yavenum Nirgamya Turnamavalapati Bhuri Punya Vashyanti Sasmitamutam Sadaya Valokam Vratar Vrajat Vrajata Avishatas Jasayam Yovi Samam Panayato Syanisham Yavenum Nirgamya Turnamavalapati Bhuri Punya Vashyanti Sasmitamukam Sadaya Valokam. If this is too difficult, we can use the Brahma Samhita. Ratar Vrajat Vrajata Avishatas Jasayam Yogi Samam Panayato Syanisham Yavenum Nirgamya Purnamavala Pati Bhuri Punyaha. Pashyanti Swasmita Mukam Sadava Dayavalokam. Tatara Javrajata Avishata Shasaya. Gavi Samam Payanatosya Nishamyavim. Nirgamya Purnamala Pati Bhuri Punyaha. Pashyanti Sasmita Mukam Sadaya Valokam. Anyone else? We do this morning. Prataha, in the early morning. Vrajat, from Vraja. Vrajataha, of him who is going. Avishataha, entering. Cha, and Sayam, in the evening. Govihi Samam, together with the cows. Kwanayataha, who is playing. Asya, his. Nishamya, hearing. Venum, the flute. Nirgamya, coming out. Turnam, quickly. Abalaha, the women. Pati, on the road. Bhuri, extremely. Punyaha, pious. Pashanti, they see. Sa, with. Smita, smiling. Mukam, face. Sadaya, merciful. Avalokam, with glances. Translation. When the gopis hear Krishna playing his flute, as he leaves Braj in the morning with his cows, or returns with them at sunset, young girls quickly come out of their houses to see him. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. Let's read this all together. When the gopis hear Krishna playing his flute, as he leaves Braj in the morning with his cows, or returns with them at sunset, the young girls quickly come out of their houses to see him. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. There are a couple of commentaries. One is from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and then Jiva Goswami and Sanatana Goswami's commentaries are saying just the same. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, writes, when Krishna goes to the forest from Braj in the morning, and when he returns from the forest in the evening, they hear his flute and come out of their houses. They see him in the small groves situated on the cow paths. Seeing that they are suffering due to separation, he glances on them mercifully to fulfill their desires. This is the fortune of the women of Raj. Let's note that he's glancing on them mercifully, but also with a smile. And Srila Jiva Goswami writes, this verse describes how they drink his beauty with their eyes. In the morning, he goes with the cows and the cowherd boys while playing his flute. Understanding his presence by hearing the flute, Nishamya, they quickly come out of their houses. Mention of the flute also suggests the beauty of his face. And now there's going to be a verse that is from Krishna Karamrita, etc. Rupamangala Thakur, Tattvam mukam katamivam bhujatulyakaksham vacham avachinanu parvani parvani doho tatkim brave kimaparam bhuvanaikakanta venu tvat ananam anena samanuyat venu tvat ananam anena samanuyat syat. In describing the translation, in describing your face, how can it be compared to a lotus? Since the moon withers with each face, words of comparison with your face also wither. That's a very important point. Let's remember this in a minute. Do you speak of comparing your face to another face? How can I say that your face is equal to another face? Again, in the ecstasy of experience, rasa. Mangala Thakur writes this verse, all these verses. This is verse number 97. The gopis become so weak, abalaha, that they are unable to milk the cows because of hearing the flute, and they are continuously intense prema. Thus they stumble and fall here and there. Or they are so weak that they cannot go to meet him, and thus they simply look at him on the road. He becomes even more beautiful with his smile and his merciful glance. He thus enters Vraja in the most remarkable way, revealing his excellent forest dress with the cows and cowherd boys. Again, check. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gauravatta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are very fortunate to be in class, Bhagavatam class, to hear what the acharyas are giving us. We're very fortunate to be in Canto 10. We're very fortunate to be in chapter 44 and reading these 4 verses, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And why? Not only because they are extraordinarily beautiful, but also because they are part of the Bhakti Rasayana verses that Srila Sanatana Goswami compiled and gave to us at the end of Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita for us to actually be able to indulge in the beauty of these verses. They are altogether 63, and these are 4 of them, one after the other, 13, 14, 15, and 16. There are only, 50. Listen, there are 4 verses from the Brahma Samhita. There are 4 verses from Canto 11, and the rest of the verses are from Canto 10. Okay, so here we have 4 of them. So I'm going to read something that from the book by Mahanidi Swami, when he wrote this book a long time ago, The Art of Chanting Hare Krishna, where he has also this collection of verses in a section, chapter 18, Rasayana Japa. So he begins by saying, in the last chapter of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sri Sanatana Goswami presents 63 rasa-laden verses. Remember what I said about rasa? They're filled with essence, with beauty, with the most wonderful things that we can experience. 59 verses come from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, 55. 11th Canto, 4. and 4 verses from the Brahma Samhita. These wonderful verses stimulate the sentiments of bhakti, fill one with attraction to Vrindavan, and increase the mood of Raja Bhav. So how wonderful these verses, they are like a medicine that stimulates our desire to hear about the Supreme Lord and our desire to serve the Supreme Lord. And they nourish the little flame of devotion in our heart. Yeah? These verses are called Rasayana, a life-giving elixir in Ayurvedic medicine, because they act as potent nectar to purify the heart, solidify one's devotion, and increase one's love for Krishna. So this is what is the goal of our life, but to increase our love for the Supreme Lord to the level in which we'll have a much better birth, or some of you, fortunate souls, will be going directly to Vrindavan to assist the Supreme Lord in his pastime. So I'm going to read the 4 verses because they're extraordinarily beautiful, and they are Bhakti Rasayana verses. I'll skip the Sanskrit and read the translations. And that was 13, 14, 15, and the one that is being presented today, 16. What austerities must the gopis have performed? With their eyes, they always drink the nectar of Lord Krishna's form, which is the essence of loveliness and is not to be equaled or surpassed. That loveliness is the only abode of beauty, fame, and opulence. It is self-perfect, ever fresh, and extremely rare. The next verse. The ladies of Raj are the most fortunate of women, because with their minds fully attached to Krishna and their throats always choked up with tears, they constantly sing about him. They constantly sing about him. And what is it they're singing? What are they singing? They're constantly singing about the Supreme Lord. What is it that they're singing? No answer? You're stunned. That's what you can answer. They're singing his glories. They're singing his pastimes. They're singing his beauty. They're singing his holy names. Anything and everything that pertains to the Supreme Lord, they are singing. And while they're singing, they are milking the cows, winnowing grain, churning butter, gathering cow dung for fuel, riding on swings, taking care of their crying babies, sprinkling the ground with water, cleaning their houses, and so on. So it doesn't matter what we do, we can always sing. By their exalted Krishna consciousness, they automatically acquire all desirable things. Our mind is very wicked. So many things come to the mind, so many thoughts. Some of them are not so good. So we replace them with the chanting of the holy name. So we replace them by hearing class about the Supreme Lord. The next one. Did I skip one? Let me see. Skip one. It is. Oh, here it is. And the verse for today, when the gopis hear Krishna playing his flute as he leaves Raj in the morning with his cows or returns with them at sunset, the young girls quickly come out of their houses to see him. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. So Krishna is very merciful. His face is full with a big smile, and in seeing that these ladies are suffering from separation, at that point, he glances upon them and fills their heart with his love for them, and in exchange. So we're talking about how this verse describes the gopis drinking the beauty of Krishna with their eyes. And who are speaking these verses? Remember who are speaking these verses? the ladies of Mathura, who are very, very sharp, and they have the intelligence to be able to recognize the value of the service of the gopis of in Vrindavan to the Supreme Lord. And they have the desire to eventually be able to have this kind of service themselves. They are also witnessing something very unpleasant, which is how apparently these weak young men, youth, are fighting against these extremely powerful wrestlers, and they're completely filled with anxiety and fear and apprehension that these two young men, Krishna and Balaram, are going to be destroyed. And so also they are suffering. And all this suffering is very purifying. They, at that point, recite these verses, glorifying the Supreme Lord, and thinking how wonderful those gopis of Vrindavan are. How many austerities they must have performed to be able to have this sweet association of the Supreme Lord with them, and being able to have this intimate connection with the Supreme Lord. So in this verse also, what is described is that they hear, the gopis are hearing Krishna playing the flute. And so we can also hear verses about Krishna playing the flute. So I'm going to read a chapter of Canto 10 where Krishna is playing the flute. So we can actually have a little taste of the wonderful pastimes of flute playing, and how they can impact our consciousness in a way that purifies our heart and gives us the lolium, the desire to continue in the process and increasing our devotion for the Supreme Lord. When we go to classes, we can hear so many things, but the ultimate point is to hear those classes that arouse in us feelings of devotion. We may hear so many wonderful things, so many interesting analysis, so many wonderful things. Now the most important thing, say that we're dying the next day, is to hear classes, to hear texts that arouse within our hearts the desire to love the Supreme Lord with all our heart, might, and soul. So I'm going to read this chapter, which is wonderful, and I think at that time we'll pretty much be done with the time allotted for the class. Let's see how much I can read from the chapter. Shukadeva Goswami said, "Thus the Vrindavan forest was filled with transparent autumnal waters and cooled by breezes perfumed with the fragrance of lotus flowers growing in the clear lakes. The infallible Lord, accompanied by his cows and cowherd boyfriends, entered that Vrindavan forest. The lakes, rivers, and hills of Vrindavan resounded with the sounds of maddened bees and flocks of birds moving about the flowering trees. In the company of the cowherd boys and Balaram, Madhupati, Sri Krishna, entered that forest, and while herding the cows, he began to vibrate his flute. When the young ladies in the cowherd village of Raj heard the song of Krishna's flute, which arouses the influence of Cupid, some of them privately began describing Krishna's qualities to their intimate friends. So here they begin to do kirtan of guna kirtan, or the qualities of Krishna. The cowherd girls began to speak about Krishna, but when they remembered his activities, O king, the power of Cupid disturbed their minds, and thus they could not speak." And this is one of the most amazing verses you are going to find in the Bhagavatam. Wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue karnika flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vajjayanti garland, Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavan beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the Kahar boys sang his glories. Again, the more kirtan here. O king, when the young ladies of Raj heard the sound of Krishna's flute, which captivates the minds of all living beings, they all embraced one another and began describing it. The Kahar girl said, "O friends, those eyes that see the beautiful face of the sons of Maharaj Nanda are certainly fortunate. As these two sons enter the forest, surrounded by their friends, driving the cars before them, they hold their flutes to their mouths and glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan. For those who have eyes, we think there is no greater object of vision. Dressed in a charming variety of garments upon which their garlands rest, and decorating themselves with peacock feathers, lotuses, lilies, newly grown mango sprouts, and clusters of flower buds, Krishna and Balaram shine forth magnificently among the assembly of Kahar boys. They look just like the best of dancers appearing on a dramatic stage, and sometimes they sing. Can you imagine what the singing of Krishna and Balaram would be like? My dear gopis, what auspicious activities must the flute have performed to enjoy the nectar of Krishna's lips independently and leave only a taste for us, gopis, for whom that nectar is actually meant. The forefathers of the flute, the bamboo trees, shed tears of pleasure. His mother, the river on whose bank the bamboo was born, feels jubilation, and therefore her blooming lotus flowers are standing like hair on her body. O friend, Vrindavan is spreading the glory of the earth, having obtained the treasure of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Devaki. The peacocks dance madly when they hear Govinda's flute, and when other creatures see them from the hilltops, they all become stunned. Blessed are these foolish deer, because they have approached Maharaj Nanda's son, who is gorgeously dressed and is playing on his flute. Indeed, both the doe and the bucks worship the Lord with looks of love and affection. Krishna's beauty and character creates a festival for all women. We have a festival daily here when they open the curtains. Indeed, when the demigods' wives flying in airplanes with their husbands catch sight of him and hear his resonant flute song, their hearts are shaken by Cupid, and they become so bewildered that the flowers fall out of their hair and the belt loosen. There's still a few more verses left. This is Canto 10, chapter 21. The gopis glorify the song of Krishna's flute. So please finish this at home. It's worth your time. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sankirtan Harinam ki jai. Srila Prabhu ki jai.
Purusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Enam kan bandha maravindanalaya tartam Bhagavatam samasitam Buddha sundaratam Gamania, Kishesha Shoba. Govinda, Adi Purusha, Tanaham Jami. Govinda, Adi Purusha, Tanaham Jami. Govinda, Adi Purusha, Tamaham Bhajami. Andani Yasa Sakale, Priya Priti Manti, Vasyanti Bhakti Kayanti, Jira Mekanti, Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu, Jala Vigrasya, Govinda, Adi Purusha, Tamaham Bhajami. 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 Govinda, Tamaham Bhajami. Govinda, Adi Purusha, Tamaham Bhajami. Govinda, Tamaham
Yatavam Sivata Jarashakana Jasabalila Koilo Shinandananda Shinanda Srinanda Jashoda Jaya Jaya Gopagan Jaya Soda Jaya Jaya Nijamadi Jaya Jaya Denu Vatsagan Vrishabhanu Jaya Jaya Kirtida Sundari Vrishabhanu Jaya Kirtida Sundari Jaya Purnamasi Jaya Virnagari Purnamasi Jaya Jaya Gopishwara Vrindavanamat Jaya Jaya Krishna Sakha Bhatu Dvijarat Jaya Rama Jaya Dvija Padni Jaganaga Kanyagan Jaya Dvija Padni Jaya Jaya Bhakti Tejahara Pailo Govinda Charan Govinda Charan Shri Rasa Mandala Jaya Jaya Radha Shyam Jaya 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 Rasa Lila Sarvamanoram Jaya Jaya Jwala Rasa Sarva Rasa Sar Sarva Rasa Sar Parakiya Bhave Jabrajete Prachar Shri Janava Pada Padma Goriya Smaran Goriya Smaran Dina Krishna Dasa Koe Nama Sankirtan Krishna Koe Nama Sankirtan Dina Krishna Dasa Koe Nama Sankirtan Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Gopinatha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Radha Shama Sundara, Shama Sundara, Shama Sundara, Shama Sundara. Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Gaurani Jaya, Gaurani Jaya, Gaurani Jaya, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda Shri Radhe, Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda Radhe, Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda Radhe, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda Radhe, Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Hare Hare, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Shri Vrindavan Dham. Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Shri Vrindavan Dham. Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan. Jai Nitya Dev Vishnu Vishnupada Mansavari Vajkacharya Stotra Siddha Shri Shri Mahadev Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ananta Koti Vaishnava Niki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Seko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kundu Radha Kundu Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadvipam Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Shri Gangamaya Ki Shri Jamuna Maya Ki Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Shri Harinam Sankirtan Priya Madanga Transcendental Krishna Prashadam Sankirtan Samaveda. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some All glories to Radha Krishna, the divine force of Vrindavan. All glories to the three presiding deities of Vrindavan, Sri Govind, Gopinath, and Radha Mohan. All glories to Shama Kunda, Radha Kunda, and the Jamuna River, Kulinda. All glories to the great forest known as God, the Vansi Bhata tree, and the 12 forests of Raja. At these places, the son of Nanda, Sri Krishna, performed all his pastimes. All glories to Krishna's divine father and mother, Nanda and Yashoda. All glories to the cowherd boys headed by Sridhar. All glories to the cows and calves of Praja. All glories to Radha's divine father and mother, Vishwani, and the beautiful Kirtana. All glories to Purnamasi, the mother of Sandipani Muni. All glories to the young family named Govardhan. All glories to Gopishwar Shiva, who resides in Vrindavan in order to protect the holy Dham. All glories to Krishna's Swami Radha Mangala. All glories to Ramadas, where Lord Balaram performed his Vajrayana. All glories to Lord Balaram, the son of Brahma. All glories to all the rivers. All glories to the wise and proud Vedic Brahma. All glories to the wise and Vedic serpent. Through pure devotion, they obtained the lotus feet of Lord Govinda. All glories to the place where the runs of Sri Krishna was performed. All glories to Radha. All glories, which is the most beautiful. All glories to the mellow constant, which is the most excellent of all, and is propagated in Braja by Sri Krishna. Remembering the lotus feet of one who began of a Devi with very small Saudarpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavagni Shreya Karaiva Chandrika Varnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kala Vetadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trina